Hey, it's Lisa Rothman, the founder of StopFamilyConflict.com. Okay, so back to this road trip to recap for everyone in case you missed it. So this mom and daughter are going on a 2-week road trip together. The daughter is 12 years old. And last week we looked at how step 1 of the 5-step family conflict prevention plan for the holidays worked with their holiday in terms of consulting with everyone. So having consulted with everyone and having that work out about the adventure that they were going to have in nature and staying together, really connecting with each other, not going off and doing a workshop in the woods or visiting mom's friends, it was now time for mom to find a vehicle to drive. And as she started to do this research, it seemed to her that there were 3 choices, there were 3 options, and they were not going to work for both of them. And she despaired about finding a way to do step 2, which is integrate what's important to everyone. So, choice number 1 involved getting a motorhome. And now here's why she thought that they needed to get a motorhome. It was because her daughter insisted that she be able to sleep in a bed separate from her mom. And her mom could not imagine a vehicle smaller than a motorhome where that would be possible. And the daughter was very clear. She wanted to have as much choice as possible about how close she was going to be to her mom on this road trip because they were already going to be in pretty close quarters. Okay, but this motorhome, when the mom went to check out the motorhomes, she felt completely intimidated by them, and she thought, she's the only one who's going to be doing the driving these hundreds of miles. There was no way she could drive a motorhome. Okay. Option number 2 also was not going to work for both of them because option number 2 would be to get a camper van, which the mom imagined only had one place for both of them to sleep. And so that would have involved, so if the vehicle was going to be small enough for mom to drive, she was like, I'm going to be forcing my daughter to be sharing a bed with me. That's not going to work for my daughter. So there's a compromise too. And she knows, don't go with compromise because that's going to lead to trouble later on and her daughter would be miserable. Okay, so option number 3, mom could confess to her daughter that she was scared of driving a motorhome. Now, this might surprise you. It's like, wait, why does this seem like an option that isn't appealing to the mom? Well, it turned out that she was afraid that if she confessed to her daughter that she didn't feel confident driving a really big vehicle, that her daughter would, lose confidence in her mom's driving ability and not feel secure going on this trip, not trusting her mother to take her there. And so this mom was scared that the whole trip would be off if she confessed why she didn't want to go with a motorhome. So she saw 3 bad choices. Either get a motorhome that is too big for her to feel comfortable driving, get a camper van and have her daughter be miserable sleeping in the same bed with her, or confess to her daughter her fear about driving a motorhome and have her daughter not want to go on the trip at all. So when presented with 3 options and all of them seem like they're not going to work, you want to look for the one that has the possibility of shift. And it's typically one where one of the people has some fear around it, and if we can address the fear, all of a sudden it becomes a very, very appealing option. And as I'm sure you're guessing, that was option 3. And the mom realized that since the whole purpose of the trip was for her and her daughter to connect more closely, well, heck, when you connect more closely, this means that you confess your fears to each other. You make yourself vulnerable. So the act of doing this would bring them close together. So even though it felt scary to mom to tell her daughter that she was scared, she risked it and she did it. And the daughter was completely fine knowing that her mom didn't want to drive a big motorhome. She could totally relate. She wouldn't have wanted to drive one of those either. So she understood and she was totally confident about her mom's ability to drive a smaller vehicle. And with that, all of a sudden the mom's creativity freed up and she realized exactly the question to ask the people who rent these vehicles. She said, is there a camper van that has 2 separate sleeping spaces? And the second sleeping space could be accessed from inside the vehicle because I'm not willing to be accessing a bed from outside the vehicle. And lo and behold, there was. And that is what they rented. So step 2, integrate what is important to everyone. And if you seem to have just a bunch of options that aren't going to work, look a little more deeply at the one that seems to have the wiggle room and see if there's a fear that is blocking you from pursuing it. Okay, next week we'll be looking at step 3, speak truth with care to yourself. And that is exactly what happened for the mom when they arrived at a camping site that it turned out wasn't actually so much about camping. All right, stay tuned for that one. Look forward to sharing it with you next week. Bye for now.